for Razorpay Payment Gateway integration using React.Js and Node.Js. So let's get started by Node.Js. So here is my backend folder. So before explaining about this code, first of all you have to create this file npm init-y. By using this command npm init-y, you have to create the package.json file. Package.json file is basically contain all the dependency you are installed or used in your backend Node.js server, and if you are running the frontend application, it also stored the dependencies, and it also contains the script that is basically used to run the Node.js server. So I'm defining this start to be node-mon-app.js, and this is the main file index.js. Inside this file I'm importing some dependencies like express, path, short id, course, razorpay. After importing these dependencies, I'm initializing my razorpay credentials, this key id and the key secret. By this key id and the key secret, I'm initializing my razorpay credentials. So you have to create your account on the official site of Razorpay. Then after you will get these key id and the key secret. This is basically the dashboard of the Razorpay, and inside this dashboard, at the very bottom, you have to find the setting menu, and inside this setting you have to go under this API key section, and here you will find your key id. I'm using this key id in my module for Razorpay, so that's why I'm not regenerate this. It's up to you, it's your choice, you have to regenerate also your key id and the key secret. So after defining these credentials key id and the key secret, I'm making one endpoint that is basically using get http method. It's nothing but showing the logo at the very first time the checkout window loads. I'll show you. This is the checkout window, Razorpay Payment Gateway integration basically. So it shows this logo. It's up to you, it's your choice, you have to use your own picture or another picture. So this endpoint is basically used to show the logo at the very first time of the checkout window basically. And after that I'm also making one endpoint with the help of post http method that is basically handles all the payment, and inside this I'm defining some variable like payment capture, the amount, the currency, and the amount to be defined 499 and the currency defined as in INR by default. And after defining this variable, I'm defining another object named option. Inside this option I'm defining some key values like the amount, the currency, the receipt, the payment capture. Here I'm writing short id.generate. Generate is basically the method used to generate some short IDs. Short ID is basically used to create some URL friendly, non-sequential URL friendly unique IDs. So in this payment gateway, you have to use this short ID and the generate method to generate the short ID. In the payment gateway integration, basically in the Razorpay, it helps us to create the payment ID and the product ID and the order ID. So generate method is used to create these IDs. And after that I'm handling my request inside the try catch block. If everything goes fine, the code is written inside the try block, and if there is an error, the catch block throws the error. I'm defining one variable response that contain all the response or the I'm passing this object options, and by passing this object option, it will pass also the amount, the currency, the receipt, the payment capture, and on successful transaction it will return the response in JSON, and it will return the ID, the currency, the amount, and it also throws a response inside the console at the backend side. And I'm defining port to be running on 5000, so I'm writing this method app.listen, so my app is running at the port of 5000. this is shown at the very first time when I'm running my application. App is running at 5000. So this is the explanation of the backend part. So let's jump into frontend part. So before explaining about this frontend part, you have to create your default React app, basically your default React app, with the help of this command npx create React app followed by the name of your app. Like suppose you have to give your application name as razorpay frontend. So this is basically the application, the command to create default React app. Mine is already created, that's why I am not hitting this command. So inside this folder, here is one root folder, and I am making one another folder component. Inside this component folder, I am making one file that is basically nothing but a course card. It is nothing but a functional component. Course card component basically defines the thing which is showing at the very first time when you run your application. Like when you run your React app, mine is already running, up and running. So when you run this application, it will show at the very first time the heading along with this button. So this component basically showing this heading and this button, and on click of this button I make another function component display razorpay. This component basically handles all the payment related transaction related request. Like it will return the response inside this variable data, and I'm using fetch method. It's up to you, like it's your choice. You are using fetch and the axios as well, and I'm defining that payment method to be post and writing the URL of this payment, like the API which I created using Node.Js for the payment, and I'm defining this URL inside this fetch, and I'm defining method too, and get the response in JSON. After the successful transaction, the data return in the console as well, and after that I make another object named options and defining some key values like the key ID of the razorpay and the currency, the amount. That is basically like having value data.currency. Data.currency basically means that after the successful transaction, the data comes under this variable data. So everything, the currency, the amount, the key ID, that return after the transaction is showing under the currency, the amount, the description, the logo. Basically image defines the logo, that is showing under at the very first time of the checkout window, and the order ID. And after the successful transaction, it will alert the payment ID and the order ID as well. Like I'll show you. When you hit this button, pay with razorpay, this open the checkout window. Suppose you are doing your payment with the help of scanning QR code. Like after scanning QR code, if everything goes fine, it will alert the payment ID and the order ID. And this prefill is basically up to you, it's your choice. Like it's optional to write this, or you have to write because like you want the information to be pre-filled at the checkout window prior to running that method, or see the payment methods. Like you are defining name, email, contact prior. That's why you see these payment method directly. If you are not defining that mobile number or the contact number or the email ID prior inside the pre-fill, then first you have to fill these field, name and the number and the email ID. After that you have seen this various payment method like Google Pay, Paytm, PhonePe, QR code. And the main file is app.js. Basically it's a functional component. Inside this component I'm using script. Basically the script from JavaScript basically helps us to load the checkout window, and if the window is load successfully, then it will go under the resolve of true condition, and if there is some error, then it will resolve under the false condition. So here is basically my explanation about the front end part. I hope you like my video. Thank you so much.